Welcome back. It's Thursday, and that means it's Tech Talk time. My guest today is Derek Kahana. He's a visiting fellow at the Yale Law Information Society Project. First topic, a new program called Aereo. This is a digital television service that claims it allows users to stream all cable channels to all homes without that have a web connection without an actual broadcast television subscription. Here's how it works.
Anyone can watch live broadcast TV for free off the air with an antenna. Aereo has taken that antenna and made it unbelievably small. Small enough that hundreds of thousands can fit in a single room, where you can access them from the internet and watch live broadcast TV as it airs. Pick and choose the TV you want. You can even record that live TV and play it back, like a DVR without the box.
This program has the potential to reconfigure the television viewing experience as we know it. And the four major networks are taking notice. Why? Well, because they are getting currently what they call retransmission fees on top of their normal fees that they charge their customers. Now, if this program works, the television waves and all the money that go along with it could start flowing toward Aereo instead of toward those networks. So is this the end to television as we know it? Derek, what do you think?
Absolutely not. I think that this is what they call in the industry a disruptive innovation, something that comes along every once in a while and really throws technology ahead. And that's what it's doing, is it's helping consumers, it's leading to greater innovation in the market. And what happened here is that the broadcast stations, Fox and ABC and NBC that you can get for free over the airwaves, they want to charge money to cable providers and satellite providers to use those channels. And they actually charge quite a large amount of money. And so what Aereo was able to do is utilize a interesting legal reading to kind of circumvent that, to provide for customers for less than $10 a month unlimited network television and the DVR service that many customers are flocking to in New York where it's available.
Sure. Now, can you explain a little bit more about why these companies are so threatened and how they're actually reacting and thinking about ways to get around this?
Sure. So Fox recently said if this ruling was to stand, that they may get out of the broadcast industry altogether. My response as a technology guy is, well, that would be terrific. These companies are basically wasting the spectrum that's extremely valuable. So I think it's an idle threat. 10% of the American people receive their programming through broadcast. I don't think that they're going to give up their valuable spectrum. I just don't think it's going to happen.
10% meaning about 50 million people. Now, this has failed. These networks brought up this case in both a lower court as well as in the U.S. District Court, and they failed because they couldn't prove that it's copyright infringement. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So it gets a little bit into the weeds here, but put simply, if they were able in their warehouse to have an antenna for each customer. So if they have 50,000 customers, then they have 50,000 antennas. And they're all kind of in the same location, so each customer has their own little box. And as a result, you're basically just outsourcing your antenna through them, which means that just as if you have an antenna and a DVR, you're not going to have to pay anybody for that service. You're not going to have to pay NBC or Fox for that service. They shouldn't have to pay either. And that was what the Second Circuit held in their decision recently. However, the Ninth Circuit, in a similar technology called Aereo Killer, they held the other way. So it's still up for the courts to decide exactly how this is all going to shake up.
And we know that this is now moving into Capitol Hill as well, and that they might actually be deciding a lot of this as well. But let me ask you very quickly, how is this any different from Hulu or Netflix or Amazon or Apple Television? How is it different?
Sure. So, Hulu and Apple Television, all the rest of them are, Hulu and Netflix and those guys are negotiating with Fox and with NBC for their content and coming out with a contract between the two. Aereo is just recording the broadcast over the airwaves, so there's no contract there, which is why they're able to provide it so cheaply for customers.
All right, let's switch topics. Let's
Sure.
go to CISPA now. Now, the House Intelligence Committee overwhelmingly approved an updated version of the CISPA bill on Wednesday. The bill is now headed for a full House vote next week. Now, this newer version of the bill does a lot of things. Can you start breaking them down for us?
Sure. So the main point of CISPA is to provide information sharing, so companies can share information about their customers and perceived ongoing threats on their networks with one another and also with the government. And the privacy groups are very worried about this because the provisions as far as reducing private information, what they call personally identifiable information, PII for short, those provisions are they're not very well written, and so you're having a lot of personally identifiable information potentially given to other companies or even given to the government, and there's no liability there for the companies. So the incentive is for them to be sharing more information.
But at the same time, they've dropped the so-called national security provisions. They've broadened the definition of cybersecurity. They're requiring the government to remove personal information from shared data. So in some ways, is it moving toward kind of the center to quell some of those privacy advocates' concerns or not?
I mean, it hasn't quelled the concerns of any of the privacy organizations. Most of the language that says that you should reduce the personally identifiable information says that you should, not that you have to, or that there's any penalty to not doing so. And so the onus is on actors to reduce the personally identifiable information on their own. Now, all the tech companies that you would ask on this issue are either against the issue or indifferent on the issue. So about 30,000 websites have come out against this bill. Companies like Facebook and have said some issues with the privacy. Microsoft, which was an initial supporter, has started to back off of their initial support. So the real tech experts in the industry have not been the full-throated supporters that you would expect, which leads us to believe that these privacy issues are more serious than they appear.
Sure, there's always something in the underbellies of these bills that we just don't understand fully because we're not the ones that are in there writing and creating them. But finally, let's talk about this plane that was allegedly hacked. Now, a researcher in Germany says that he knows how to successfully hack an airplane system and no longer requires guns in order to hijack a plane. You can do it with a computer. So obviously, hacking this airplane, overwriting a pilot, is a huge technological accomplishment. But is it also a justification for CISPA?
I don't think so. I think this is a clear vulnerability. We've seen this with airplanes, but also with UAVs, GPS jamming, for example.
But this one is different because people are in that. If they just do a drone, it's just a machine. These are people that are in the air currently.
Sure, but I mean, there's been no demonstration that CISPA is actually going to lead to greater cybersecurity or deal with these type of problems. And the hearings have been held behind closed doors. The Intel committee held a closed hearing. So we need to be presented with the evidence on why our personally identifiable information should be given to the government. The government should have to demonstrate that. We shouldn't just assume that they should have this information.
And we only have about 30 seconds left, but can you explain to us how this is going to affect our day-to-day lives? Will we notice it affecting our day-to-day lives if CISPA goes through?
I think the jury's still out. We're going to see exactly how some of the privacy things are implemented. It's unclear if the Senate's going to pass this legislation, so we'll find out.
All right, Derek Kahn, a visiting fellow at the Yale Law Information Society Project. Thank you so much for joining us and breaking that all down for us.